Hey guys, it's Cynical Who here, and welcome back to another video. And today I am showing off my 8th Doctor Tardis console model. This is a sort of set model thing I've built in scale with the 5-inch character options figures to go alongside them. It's taken me about a year, mainly for this particular set. You might remember one of my early videos. One of my most popular videos was a show-off of my old McGann console. This has changed drastically since then. It's not even the same console. I've sort of took it apart and started one completely fresh from scratch. This is the one I've been working on since, I think, coming up to a whole year. I started working on it last November and it's coming up to December now, so it's been a long process. I've mainly put it off for sort of lack of inspiration. I sort of fell out of love with it. Again, like the figure adventure, it took me a whole year to get around to finishing it off. A few weeks ago I sort of powered through and finished it off, and I posted some pictures on Twitter along with sort of the build process, some like work in progress pictures, and I asked people if they'd like to see a video about it, and some people said yes, so here I am. So I'm just going to take you through the main set of the console. The room's an entirely different matter. I'm going to take you through some of the building process and some of the features that the TARDIS console itself has. So let's get into it. So firstly, I'm going to start off by, I guess, sort of showing you roughly the set. I'm going to lift up my tripod here. You can see basically, for context, I am in the process of filming my new figure adventure, which features this TARDIS console. I don't normally have the entire room set up like this. I used to a couple of years ago. I've only set it up yesterday again, just so I can film the new scenes for the new figure adventure as well as this video. If I zoom out, you can see again the set is not really important, but the whole model itself is quite big, and it's essentially the main console piece with the sort of big hexagonal base for the floor with 5 pillars instead of 6. I'll get into that, why I did not include the 6th pillar. So I'd like to start off by crediting the amazing Action Figure Theatre and Philip Lawrence for, of course, well, you'll see in the background the TARDIS sets, the walls and the library and things like that. Of course, you would have known Action Figure Theatre's site is where basically everyone gets all of their sets for their Doctor Who figure adventures, and on there is a 8th Doctor. There is this console which you can print out and shape and make. Obviously, it's 2D. Well, it's 3D, but it has, you know, all the panels are 2D and the walls and things, the pillars are 2D. But essentially, I sort of used those as templates. I'll see if I can find some old pieces. For example, here's the main console base bit. I do have some of the other pieces somewhere, but I can't exactly remember where. So essentially, I'm just going to take you through the main build. For now, I'm going to turn the lights off. I'll get back to those later, and I'm going to bring the other lights up. There we go, with the main lights on. It obviously doesn't look as pretty because it has to be in certain lighting for it to look good in the animation, but just for the sake of this video I'm going to take you through. I'm going to also take out the 8th Doctor himself though. We'll get back to him later. So I'm probably going to start off from the ground upwards and work my way up. I'll start with the sort of main console bulk bit itself, sort of the main panels, the box itself. So essentially, again, I used the templates on the Action Figure Theatre site, and it's all made out of foam board. I do actually have the original. This will show how I did it. I have, this was my old one, which I never finished. It's very dusty. This is actually made out of plastic, but I never put any decorations on the console. Essentially all fixed together with tape. But, so essentially I would cut out 6 of these shapes, 6 of these panels, a hexagon at the top and a bigger hexagon at the bottom, and join it all together. But before I stuck it all together, obviously I had to poke the holes through for the lights. I'll zoom in for that again. As you can see on this first panel, there are 5 holes on it, well, 10 holes, for 1 for each light. So if you see, I turn that on and the light comes through those holes. It's very overpowering at the moment, but I'll get back to that. So essentially, on the Action Figure Theatre print, it's all in 2D, obviously, and it has sort of the layout of all the controls. Now, they're not entirely accurate. They are very, very close, but some of the things are slightly out of proportion and wrong colours and things, etc. Especially when it's 2D, it's hard to tell what they look like. So I was sort of referring to the Action Figure Theatre print and the actual photos from the TV movie and some other photos taken at a convention of the console itself. So it's just sort of a job of referring to the TV movie and the sets and just sort of looking at what I actually had to do and had to make, and then putting it all together and just sort of finding a way to feasibly execute that in tiny 5-inch form. So I'll just quickly take you through the panels. It's quite hard to navigate around, so I'll spin the actual console itself around so you can see. So starting off on this first panel, I think they have names. I don't know if the TV movie TARDIS has names for the panels. So basically this panel is probably my favourite panel, hence why I had it facing to the front. Also works in correlation as to where the doors and the scanner is. So it's got this main strip of switches which do move. Essentially this gold plate, which I was going to do 3D but I ended up just painting it on. And these levers, if I do try, they do come out. Those are in fact Lego levers. I hope that focuses. It won't do. Sorry for my chipped nail polish as well. I probably should have taken that off before I started filming. But essentially those sort of slot in. I've made little holes for those to flick in, and they just sort of go left and right. I've even got them laid out like they are in the TV movie. I know that's very sad, but you'll see Sylvester McCoy flicking those backwards and forwards in the opening scene. We don't have this control here, which is probably my favourite control, which is sort of a spinny thing. I don't actually know what it is. I think McGann uses this in the final scene. I'm not entirely sure, but it's basically a. I'll try and zoom in on that for you. It's basically a sort of pyramid shape made out of milliput. I'm sure lots of customizers will know what milliput is. It's sort of a modelling clay epoxy type thing. Comes in white tubes like that. And basically I sort of sculpted that. It was all made out of sort of bits and pieces that I could find, and it's got a bit of plastic strip painted silver as sort of the main handle, with a ball, a sort of semi-sphere on the end, almost like the Dalek semi-spheres. Those were incredible help with making this. I'll get back to those later for the sort of the base and the neck ring sort of section, but they also helped with making the console as well, as you'll see there. And it was just sort of all sorts of sticking bits and pieces I could find together. Like there's a tiny bolt in there as well. Just sort of seeing what I could make work, and that does spin around, of course. On the left here we have a sort of panel of dials. Those are just 4 of those semi-circle, sort of semi-sphere adhesive beads. I don't know where the strip of them came from. I've completely lost them, which isn't going to help when I come to build maybe a potential future TARDIS, like maybe a Hartnell one. But again, that's just sort of stuck on a plate, painted brown with the screw holes, and everything's sort of given a light weathering, some silver sort of highlight and muddy brown wash, just to sort of bring out a bit of texture in it and make it look like the Doctor has actually been using these instruments. At the top we have 3 little clock things. I didn't bother painting the faces on because I'm quite frankly lazy, and those are just made out of milliput, painted silver around the edge, painted white in the middle. And again, the 5 holes on each side, which again light up. Instead of being each individual colour, that one's green and those ones are blue. Those ones are green, those ones are blue. I'll explain that later as to why I couldn't. Essentially, I ran out of lights. But either way, that's that panel. Moving round, again I have to try and spin the whole thing round here without trying to knock any of it over. In fact, if I move the battery packs onto the set, spoiling the illusion. This one's a bit more bland in sort of function-wise. None of the things really move on here. But again, if I turn the lights on, we've got this. So we've got 3 lights along the top, 3 lights along the side, a light on the left, and this sort of strip of, I guess it's almost like an arcade machine in a way. I don't quite know why it reminds me of that. But we've got 2 yellow, 2 red, 2 green, and 2 blue. Essentially, that was cut out, and on the inside there's a bit of plastic which I painted, and it's enough to let the light through in the right colours. So that was quite tricky, but I managed to do it and sort of stick it in place. And we have this panel, which again I did quite lazily. It doesn't look much like it is on the actual prop. It's all got all sorts of things. I couldn't really find much reference material because it's quite dark. But essentially that's just some buttons and things. I wasn't too bothered about that. I know, again, I'm lazy. I tried to be as accurate as possible. I've just knocked over a candle in the background. Don't worry, not a real candle. A pretend one for the TARDIS. And then we have this panel, which again has 3 lights along the bottom, this row of switches which they've all fallen out. I need to fix those, This, I don't quite know what this is. It's I'm McGann, it's a sort of a twisty thing. But that lights up as well, the light shines through. And we've got these two little, almost like compass looking things on each side. There is light supposed to be coming through, but I forgot to thread the lights through, so a little bit of light does shine through on those bits, but not as much as there is in the movie, mainly because it was just too fiddly to do. And this sort of triangle section at the top, again, just cut out of card. That strip was made of foam board and these are made out of card. Again, that was some sort of clear plastic, but painted. And moving around, on the top left of that panel, we have there's a little sort of reading light sort of thing that sort of comes off and shines light onto this panel. And I get that sort of bend, it's not meant to, that's sort of foam board and card, painted gold, glued on. Hot glue was my absolute saviour in this build, and also one of the levers has just fallen off. Yeah, that's quite funny. I'll leave that for the moment as we move around to, I think I actually know the name of this one. This is the navigation panel, if I'm right. I might actually have to get a bit of a higher camera angle for this one, so bear with me. So on the navigation panel, this is, again, quite one I think a lot of people remember from the TV movie. It has this lever on the side, which keeps on falling out of the socket. I don't know whether to glue it in place, because it does move up and down, but a little bit too freely at the moment because it's always dropping out. It has these two little things at the bottom of the panel. Has this little keypad on the left here. That was just made of milliput with the texture sort of scratched in, painted gold. And this little foam board thing with a bit of red wire. I think that wire is actually from the character options figures. It's from one of the B&M sets, painted red and sort of stuck in place. And along the top here we have, again, I'm going to try and capture this as well as possible. We have the sort of destination settings, I guess. I've totally forgotten what they're called. They spin round to set the destination, and I have actually put in a feature where you can move them. You need something, it's quite difficult, needs something very small to move it, so I'm just using a sword. This is part of the set in the background, but if I move it very lightly, you can in fact see the destination thing spinning around. So we've got Gallifrey, hopefully I can make it through the entire cycle. They're a little bit stiff, but we've got things like the Humanian era, the Rassilon era, the Manusan era, and the date things flip around at the bottom. I actually made these myself. You can't get them on the printout. I think I made them in a PowerPoint presentation, just with the font and the colouring and the borders. And essentially, I printed those out to the right size and stuck them on a pen. If I show you now, sort of something like a pen like this, cut it up, sawed it up with a hacksaw, but because it has that hexagonal sort of round nature to it, so it was sort of a destination on each side of the pen. I'm trying to explain this the best I can, but basically it was sort of printed on, printed on paper, stuck on, and essentially it had, I'm going to try and demonstrate this with this sword, essentially it had sort of a rod going through, so you can spin it round freely, and basically that's what's going on in there. There's 3 rods, one top, 2, and this bottom one split into 3, and I sort of put it in like a little box that's stuck on the underside of the panel. So essentially those destination selector things can move freely if I need them to. I don't really need them to, it's quite difficult, quite fiddly. But if I ever need them to move, they can do. And that was very difficult to do, but I guess it pays off. And there's also a panel with some switches on the side, and again those 3 clocks at the top. Moving it around once more, and this consists of, again, lots of lights. I'll flick the lights on for you for this one. So it has, again, another panel of switches. These are the bottom of Lego levers, painted brown with silver highlight again, a little bit too much silver. But essentially stuck on a plastic panel and then glued on. They don't move. I don't really need them to move, but again, I tried to get them as accurate as possible in the TV movie, and they're not really. They're sort of more dials stuck to the plastic backing rather than sort of spherical knobs, but it looks okay from afar, I guess. And on each side there's these sort of weird, I don't know what to say, they look like shields, like medieval shields that you hang on a wall with lights coming through. That's the best way I can describe them. Those were made out of milliput, painted silver. I think they're actually gold on the thing, so I will need to go and fix that. stuck on, and with enough room for a light to come through. So there's a red one and a yellow one, as you can see. At the top we have this sort of I can't remember, is it yellow? Yeah, it's sort of a greeny. It's a greeny one actually. Almost like a plastic globe type thing sticking out that has light shining through. I essentially made that out of hot glue gun, basically a blob of hot glue, enough to let the light shine through, sanded down, with a milliput ring around it, painted silver to give it the sort of edge, and that was stuck on with a hole with another LED light on the other side, so the light does come through there. And you'll see these two little lights on either side. That was basically they're like little caps. I guess that's what they look like, sort of over like car lights. They're sort of caps to get the light to shine down. As you can see, there's two yellow lights on the inside, and it, rather than flaring out, it goes where the caps sort of direct them. Again, those were just made out of milliput, sort of curved around, painted a dark grey silver, in keeping with the rest of the TARDIS. And at the top there's another odd thing. I don't actually know what it is. I think it might have a very, very tiny light in it, but that was just been too small for me to do. So yeah, that was just another blob of milliput painted silver. Now moving around onto the last panel, again, don't know what this one's called, but essentially two holes for lights on each side, and again another sort of panel-y thing, silvery browny, with some dials and things that do actually move, and bits and pieces, and this sort of weird winged thing at the top. So we've got, again, I'll turn the lights on for this one. It's sort of a blue globe. Essentially, what that is the sort of orb from Davros's chair. I took that apart and glued the blue orb in place with a light on the other side, a blue light on the other side, to give it that shine through, and it's sort of a nice sort of spherical dome looking thing that comes out of the TARDIS. The green sort of, again, I don't know what to call it, dome type plasticky clear thing at the top is the same sort of deal as this one over here. Again, a blob of glue with milliput around it, painted silver and sanded down, and on each side it has these sort of winged things almost, in a way. Those are just gold pieces of card painted and stuck on. So that's as far as things sort of really go in terms of manoeuvrability. So moving, I'm going to move down before I move up. Again, I'm going to have to adjust the tripod for this. I guess sort of the legs of the TARDIS console, what sort of holds up the main base of the console, is made out of mainly foam board and card and milliput. So essentially, it's a sort of ring, a tube foam board curved round, with holes cut out. It's very hard to show on here, I do apologise. I hope this is coming through okay on the video. But basically, it was curved around. I'll show some work in progress pictures on screen to hopefully try and explain how this is done better. And then I stuck that down into a sort of flat circle with these, again, self-adhesive beads along the side, and bands around the main cylinder at the bottom and the top to sort of make it thinner in the middle. Again, beads stuck on there and painted silver. So that was sort of a main cylinder. And then it came to sort of cutting out these sort of triangular pieces. Again, they don't have the templates for any of this, so this was sort of me winging it and trying to see what was right. And those are sort of triangular pieces with holes poked in them. There's 3 of them poking out each way, and there's these sort of, I guess, table legs at the bottom, made of milliput, sort of ball-ended, with going into the middle of the console. It was all painted the same dark silver as the sort of in keeping with the pillars and whatnot. It was quite difficult, but again, it pays off very well and it looks awesome, especially at the bottom. It adds that depth to it again. I've seen people do this, again, not throwing shade at anyone, but if you don't, it looks a lot nicer if you do all of the details with the pillar and the bits at the bottom and things like that. So acetate upwards again, looking at the rotor, it is very temperamental again, very fiddly. It's sort of mainly a rolled up tube of acetate, which is what they use on the character options figures for the window boxes, if you can see that there, this sort of plastic on the front. In the middle I use these sort of tubes of these little sticks of sort of translucent blue plastic, and position them into the places when they need to be. I think there's I can't be able to count. I think there's 8 of them in the middle rather than the 6 you'd expect. So there's 8 on the inside. It's very hard to show because of the light shining off of it. There's sort of a plate, I guess, sort of hangs there. I don't know if you can see that. That's on the actual console. It just sort of, I guess, holds them all together, but it also is for decorative purposes, and it looks very nice with the blue light on. That's essentially a blue light from the inside of the console, which goes up into the rotor, and that bottom bit is also mirrored at the top, which was a lot harder to fix in place in glue without it falling down and sort of biting together. So you'll notice that there's a blue light inside the console, and the lighting was a big pain to do, definitely a big pain to do. Essentially, it's all, I'll again spoil the illusion here, it's all controlled by this battery pack, which goes across a wire up into the TARDIS. There's a little flap at the bottom, a little panel where it goes up inside. And it's essentially a case of managing to stick them through all the holes where they need to go. Blue one up there, yellow ones, and red ones, and blue ones in the right places. A case of gluing them in place, because if I didn't, they'd go haywire and just fly all about the place and come out. And once it was all stuck together, there's no going back. Basically, this is all fixed in place. So they're all stuck in place. There's no way I can take this apart. Thankfully, I kept the battery box on the outside. I know it looks a bit ugly. It doesn't look as pretty. But if it had run out of batteries, I would have had to take the entire thing apart, strip it down, glue it back together again, just if I wanted to change the batteries. So I'm glad I didn't have to do that. The only annoying thing is that the lights do have nice settings. It was very hard to find these particular ones, and I had 2 other sets that broke because halfway through building this thing, it actually fell off the shelf and smashed into a million pieces. But the TARDIS lights do flash, which looks nicer on camera actually, I'm not going to lie. Especially when the lights are off. I'll show you that again later. You can get Christmas lights that sort of pulsate and the ones actually change colour. I would have loved those, but I could not find them anywhere. But that would have been ideal for this, having them slowly pulsate and change rather than because the only settings on here are static and a main sort of flashing thing, and off, of course. But it was just sort of a case of finding the right ones, and thankfully, I could have done worse. I did originally have white ones painted, and those would have looked a bit tackier, and they didn't even flash. And that sort of goes up into the rotor, and it also blends kind of a little bit with the purple as well, giving it a nice almost UV look. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. But again, moving to the other parts of I guess the pillar, the upper pillar, there's these sort of ring sections. There's one at the bottom here too. Again, that's just curved foam board. That's thicker foam board. That's like 5mm, I think, with the self-adhesive beads painted grey on. Again, there's another one of those at the top, and it sort of builds up into the main roof section. This is very tricky to do. This is sort of at the top. It's basically there's a sort of a layer of plates here of foam board, just circular cutout, goes up into another ring section, another band. Again, looks very nice, and it goes up into. But it was basically that was made out of a cardboard tube with the rods stuck on, taped, painted. And has these rings which curve around. There's 3 of them, and there's one at the top. And it looks very nice. I do love the way it looks. Again, it adds that detail to it, and it adds to the whole grey pillory thing. And that's sort of mainly the entire console, from the bottom sort of stand up to the top of the pillar, where it connects to sort of the main spider-like sort of girders, which I will talk about now. Again, changing camera angle to talk about these pillars. Again, they do have these on the Action Figure Theatre site. Again, 2D of course. So it was my job to entirely just create my new ones using rough templates, but building up from the bottom and using the sort of hinges and things. So to take you through it roughly, the main sort of sections here were taken from the AFT site, used as templates on 3mm foam board, I think. It was a very long and enduring process. Thank God I didn't do the 6th pillar, because it probably would have killed me. It's essentially a case of sticking it onto some foam board and cutting out all these holes, these triangles and diamond shaped things on one side, circles on one side, circles on another, and the diamonds again on the other. Doing that 5 times, which was painful enough. And before you could stick it all together, you had to paint. I painted the inside black so it wasn't, because it would have been white on the inside and that would have looked really tacky. And it was a case of sort of taping over the edges, because if anyone's worked with foam board before, you'll know if you try and attach two sort of curved edges together, it just doesn't look right, and there's sort of a big gap which you can fill in with cocktail sticks. Personally, I prefer to use masking tape. Masking tape was my absolute saviour on this build, and it was just a case of doing that for that section as well as the upper section, and it was a case of building those two, which is what you get on the site, but they don't include the curved sort of cylindrical top pieces. I'm going to have to go handheld for this one because using the tripod was just too much fuss. So it's essentially cardboard tubes rolled up, painted silver, and sort of joining the bits together, again with tape used to cover up the gaps. And those sort of jut out from this main hexagonal bit at the top I made. Ignore the wires again, that's something I need to address. The wires are just there purely for decoration, purely for the figure adventure. I don't normally have the wires on the set, but it's just for because of the animation, just to add, you know, again, add a bit of depth and sort of set it off. But this sort of hexagonal bit made out of foam board, again, I'll show you this a little bit behind the scenes. You can see right down into the middle of the pillar through there. Just sort of pieces stuck together. It was originally a lot smaller, but it didn't work in proportion and it was a whole nightmare. But it was just sort of a case of getting the right measurements, sticking them all into the middle, because again, AFT does not have that. I actually made it a bit higher. I think it should be flat here, or there are some lights. Again, I did mess it up a lot because it is curved. It curves in at the top and then light holes come out, which I did originally have on my old one. But then I took that apart and just sort of scrapped it. It must be around here somewhere, I think. If you move to the bottom of the pillars, it has these sort of curved base sections, which again, AFT does not have, so I had to completely make these myself. It's essentially a case of fitting them into these curved bases, again made out of foam board and tape, making a sort of curved piece. It was sort of making a rectangular, cutting out a rectangle, making a curved piece for it to slot into with these edges, with the smaller edges sort of jutting out. Again, I'm describing this horribly, but it's the best way I can while showing it to you on video. Hopefully you understand. And I did that for all of them. Apart from on one of them, I did actually include the beads, which is accurate, but they kept on falling off, so I just called it off on that one. And I've lost them now, so I couldn't even go back and do them if I wanted to. So again, not entirely accurate, but it would have just been an absolute nightmare to do all of those. So just using these, I think it looks good enough. You're not really going to be looking at the floor the whole time, and it's quite dark on the set anyway. Again, I'm just making excuses. So with the console going up, jutting out into all of these pillars, it meets round into this base section. This base section is again just a big old chunk of foam board, a A3 sheet I think, of 5mm. It was black, and I cut it to size using again another template on AFT's site. They have the big sort of hexagonal floor piece. I think there is an even bigger one, not on the site, but in the actual prop there's a bigger one, probably 3 times as big as this one that meets on the outside. You can't see it very clearly, but it is there. And it was just a case of painting this brown to match the flooring, and you can see it's not probably stuck down, and leaving the edges almost a grey silver, because there is a sort of an edge bit that is silver, and it was a case of gluing the edges of the pillars down onto that. And that's basically it. It was sort of, yeah, again, it's all held together by glue, so that is glued to that, that's glued to that, that's glued to that, that's actually fitted in, that's not glued, that's stuck in by pressure, and these are glued in each side. So it's all, yeah, again, hot glue and masking tape sort of saved my life on this build. I forgot to mention the scanner, which I sort of roughly used as a template from AFT's site. Again, you can sort of guess how I did this one with the foam board and cutting out the silver. Essentially, it's a small brown box with a bigger silver box on the outside, sort of trapped in it. I used this sort of lighter brown frame, again all made of foam board, with the dials and a little gold edge around the screen itself, where it says critical timing malfunction. That's actually said on the movie. I made those myself in PowerPoint, like the dial, sort of the locator things. Printed out, stuck it on, and left it sort of with a, I'll show you a little feature it has in a second. But essentially that's a sort of box which hangs from this top pillar with a little, again another bit of foam board sort of to make it look like that bit doesn't actually move. Some people have it move. I can be bothered to do that. And hanging out at the bottom, it has this silver chain, like it does in the movie, which you would pull to make it come down. Again, mine doesn't do that. But that was just a very small piece of silver chain. I don't know where I got it from, I just sort of found it and I thought, oh, that'll be good for the scanner. So that fits in there. And we move to the final feature of the scanner. It does in fact light up. You probably can't see that at all. I will take the lights down so you can see that a bit better. But again, it's not showing very well on camera at all. But the scanner does light up, and essentially that was done with a wire going again to another pack of LED lights. Again, you can't see it because it's in the dark. Going all the way around, up through one of the pillars, into down into the scanner. It's sort of hidden. The wire is hidden by the sort of hanging piece. So that is essentially my 8th Doctor Tardis console tour, I guess. Sorry if it was maybe a bit long or drawn out, or I didn't explain things as well. I was trying to do it as best as I could, but it's a little bit complicated. Hopefully the on-screen pictures will help. I'll leave a link to my Twitter post where I detailed all of it. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. It looks lovely. It doesn't sound lovely. My old one used to have sound effects in it. This one doesn't. But hopefully it should look awesome in my upcoming animation. Sorry, I keep smashing the tripod. Hopefully it should look good in my upcoming animation, which hopefully you're all looking forward to. And looks lovely alongside the figures. In fact, I'll actually use the comic book McGann, who looks just awesome with it, the lighting. And of course his TV movie companion, Grace, you know, doing whatever she does when she smashes the Doctor over the head with the hammer. Spoiler alert. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If there's any other TARDISes you'd like me to show off, I have built a Jodie one. I haven't finished it, but I've sort of in the process of trying to finish off my Jodie Whittaker one, which again lights up, so you'll be very interested by that. I still trying to work on a Hartnell one. I've sort of abandoned that a couple of years ago, and I'd like to go back to it soon. But yeah, thank you to everyone who sort of showed their love for this console on the Twitter post, and thanks for everyone who's tuned in to watch, and thanks for anyone who's sat and actually watched this long. Hopefully you'll be able to see this in its fully working beauty in my upcoming figure adventure, which I'm remaining tight-lipped on. I will not leak any information for that for now. Hopefully there should be maybe a trailer. I don't know, coming soon, hopefully. I mean, keep your eyes out, I don't know. But either way, thank you very much for watching. This has been Cynical Who, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.